Okay, it's time for step one in building this Robby machine, or blockhead Robby. As you can see, since the last time we looked at this thing, I've added a lower section, a base, and the reason I added that was so we could put in the detailed tubing parts if you want. So you don't have to build the lower base, but I also wanted to work in the arc and curve and get in the ear hoop rings and all that good kind of stuff. And all that'll be covered when we get to that part of the build. Obviously these would be better if they were in a totally clear, like if you have a resin printer you could print these in clear, or if you're doing it right you turn them in acrylic. But again, we shouldn't be talking about that today, because today we're talking about step one. And step one is you can't build anything unless you have something to connect it to. You're going to have to start with the mainframe, which is these two parts here. And we'll talk about the base too, if you want to print those. In this case, when I added the base, that gave me a chance to put in switches so I could control things individually. It gives you a hollow area where you could put in your battery or power pack. I put in holes so you could run cords or cables or control wires up. Just depends what you want to do with this thing. And with the switches and everything on there, then you can do things like turn just the gyros on, or turn the scanners on, or turn on the whole mechanism. Okay, so step one, you're going to need to order yourself a couple of rolls of filament. The color isn't going to make any difference because you're going to end up painting these things. So let's get ourselves over here where we can look at the computer screen. Hopefully. Let's see if we can get in closer. The tripod isn't super user friendly, but hopefully it'll do what we need to do. See if we can zoom in maybe. So what you're looking at here is a picture of my Persa MK3S, and you can see the part basically fills the whole print bed surface. This would be the left side, not looking at it left, but it's left. And you can see I do use some supports on this one, all those deep grooves in the top of the head, and it throws some in for these holes, which you don't really need for the holes. And it's printed with the flat side down. Let me show you a better image of what we're talking about here. Here's the CAD file for that STL. This is the part we're looking at. The side that's down on the bed is this one that has this flat lip, which ends up being the side that we screw our side panel and ear cup stuff to in the end. And basically what we're talking about here is you have a right and a left. So the other one here is just a mirror image of that part. And again, this flat side part prints down on the bed. That way you only have to add supports for all these deep groove parts. And then when the part's done, I don't even remove the supports from the inside. It fills some in here. Just leave them. They're not going to be in the way of anything. It's more trouble to dig them out. To hold these two parts together, you print these pieces out, and since that STL file has both parts on there, there's a long right angle part. The tallest part fits the back. It's going to glue in there. And the shorter one fits across the bottom. It's going to glue in there. But only halfway. Because you want half of it glued into this part, and you want half of that hanging out so you can glue into this part. This short piece right here, which I said I can't really separate in this picture because we're looking at an STL file and I had both parts laid out there so I could print it that way. This separate little part ends up gluing from the bottom up in the front to give you a lip. It doesn't go all the way up because we don't want to get in the way of the wigwag flappers, whatever you'd like to call them. So it's just a flat piece. But this flat edge here prints down on the bed, so they print vertically, no supports. So you're going to need to print these three parts out. In my case, I printed at 0.2 layer height, and it took about 26 hours to do that. So you figure you got a day and 2 hours for that, and a day and 2 hours for that, and of course not very long at all for that. But you're going to have to make those parts before you can really do anything else. So let's get back to here. Let's see what other pictures we have. Some of the pictures aren't going to show what you need to be worrying about right now. It's just that when I was designing this, I had to be working a few steps ahead to make sure things were going to fit and lay out. But this basically shows the part that you're going to want to make. And if you were doing this in the correct order, which again I couldn't because since I was designing it, I had to work steps ahead. You would want to glue those two parts together like we just talked about, fill the seams, sand them, and paint it, and have that part done first. This is just showing the inside, but you've already seen that. Here's printing the other half, the other side. Again, it just fills the bed. Here's a couple of choices on the paints that I used. And all the other Robby projects I did, I was using this particular stuff, but when I went to the automotive shop, it was all sold out. The place was there for it, just people had bought it. So then I went ahead and went with the Duplicolor one. And if you want to see, the first one was the cast iron with that number, and the Duplicolor one's called cast iron also, but it has a different number. They both look okay. I mean, the speckles are more present in the VHT one, and they're less present here. This seems to cover a little easier. This has a, like I said, a less speckled look. So either one, I think they're both very good colors for this type of project. So here we are there. I do have a picture of it, but I painted that half. Like I say, what you really want to do is glue the two halves together first, because then you can come back, fill the seam, and then paint it. Here you can see the bracing as I talked about. The long part in the back up to the front, and of course the short front one is be glued in up here. And half and half. So this basically gives you a way to hold it together. So nothing is gluing this very top part together yet. This part is kind of just left in the breeze. When you put the gyro part in, even if you don't make the gyros, there's a plate you can glue in there. That'll solidify the top. And when we add the wigwag flippers, that'll solidify that part. So let's see what other images we have. Maybe nothing. I think not. So what else? Let's let's discard the scene. Let's take a look at the base. In case you want to do the base. Again, it's in two parts, and here we'd be looking at the right side part. The front comes out. See, it gives you a little bit more room. It doesn't quite fill the plate. I did fill the plate from here to here because of the snout that sticks out. And there's the other half. I had ran out of filament, so I was just using literally anything that I had. A little bit of red left, a little bit of the green left, a little bit of white. Again, it isn't going to make a difference. You're going to paint it. In this case, everything's built in that you need to glue them together. You're just going to put glue on these seams and pinch the thing together and let it glue up, and then you can come back and sand and bondo the front seam and then paint it. I laid mine on some newspaper, stuck the glue on there, and just pressed the parts together. And I didn't do any filling. I left the seam. I figured since my upper part had a visible seam, why worry about it on the lower part? But this gives you a rough idea what it's going to look like. You can see you've got switch holes. You've got holes there. They're on either side. The back wall gives you a really nice place to secure battery packs, which is what I put in some C-cell battery holders because I already had them. But again, this thing will run on 3 batteries, which would be 4.5 volts, or in this case 4 batteries, which is 6 volts, 5 volts, like on a UPS USB power bank would be ideal. It would work really well. So that's it. Those parts are up on Thingiverse. I'm going to put the link in the description below. I'd say start with those parts now, get those printed so that we can then move on to step 2. Step 2. Let's leave with a view of it again, I guess. I gotta get through. Oh, it's because I zoomed. There, I've unzoomed. Say, here's our end goal. And should I ever get a resin printer, I'll go ahead and reprint these parts in clear so it looks even better.